afternoon and welcome to another edition of the Daily Deuce. I'm Gary Graves from just outside Louisville, Kentucky, and in Maryland. My longtime friend and esteemed colleague, John Webster. How you doing today?
Gary, I'm doing great, man. A little rain today, but everything's going really well. Everything's going really well. Another action-packed week in sports. May not have ended the way we all wanted it to end, but it was still a lot of fun to watch. Hey, John Pitt, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, that was a weekend in professional football and college football to forget for me. Not fun.
From a rooting standpoint or a wagering standpoint or both?
A rooting standpoint. And that's the reason you don't bet on professional football. It's too unpredictable.
Yeah. Last weekend was probably one of the most bizarre weekends I think I've seen in college and pro football. I mean, nothing was like you said, nothing is predictable, and you make a good case for not betting on pro football, although there's probably a whole nation of bettors and sites that would probably beg to differ with you. But let's just get right into it in terms of, I guess, the bizarreness of last weekend, right there in Washington. The Commanders, get off to a good start and then run off against the Buffalo Bills team that just had their number almost from the outset. I haven't had a chance to watch the replay, but that just looked like one where they just laid a complete egg, and it was just no doubt about it from the beginning. Was that the case, John?
Yeah, it was rough. When you played sports, Gary, back in the day, did you ever have a game where the coach just told you, we're throwing the film away and we just go forward? You ever had one of those?
Oh, yeah. I mean, before we got back to the bus, he just said, y'all got to forget about this one. It was just one of those days, and it seems like that's what they ran up against.
All facets of the team struggled. Offense, defense, special teams. Nobody had a good day. They got 3 points at the end. They were getting shut out. It was 37-0. Sam Howell had 4 interceptions, 9 sacks. Some of that was the line. Some of that was him. I think as they move forward, the offensive line for Washington is better at run blocking than pass blocking. I think they need to look at establishing the run. This week they play Philadelphia. And Philadelphia's undefeated, looking real good so far. But there are holes in Philadelphia's defense, in my opinion. One of the things that Washington was able to exploit last year was running on Philadelphia. They need to look at doing the same thing again this upcoming week. The run is better. Antonio Gibson put the ball on the ground again on Sunday. That's cause for concern. Any coach does not want their back with fumbles. So I think that's going to be looked at. Robinson really didn't do anything, but I just don't think they stuck with the run long enough. I know Rivera did a gamble at one point. They had 4th and 2 inside the red, really inside the 10. And he, instead of trying to kick the field goal, they went for it. I would have put some points on the board.
Riverboat run again.
Yeah, I would have put some points on the board. Buffalo, 4 interceptions, a pick 6. I looked at one of them. That was a pick 6. Hal could have run, could have made his way towards a first down or close to it, and he decided to try to throw the ball over top of the defender. Hal's about 5'11", 6 feet. The defender's 6'6", and when the defender jumped in the air, he's 6'8", 6'9", 6'10". So, Hal has to think about some of the decisions he's making back there. The defensive line for Washington did not do a lot. The whole defense did not do a lot. It was a struggle across the board. As I said to you earlier, Gary, that's a game. You can throw that film away because all aspects of Washington did not do well at all.
But here's my question, actually, two. All right. One, does a game like that dull your enthusiasm for Sam Howell, quarterback? And two, can they avoid turning one loss into two, as coaches like to say? Because a demoralizing loss like that, well, maybe that's a third question. Is it a demoralizing loss or just an outlier, just an aberration? Like you said, you could just throw the film out on that one.
I still am excited about Washington. I still think they have a positive side upon them. Let's not forget Buffalo's one of the better teams, not just in the AFC, but in football. I mean, they got Josh Allen back there. You got Stephon Diggs at wide receiver, and they have an elite defense.
Mm-hmm.
So the loss is not surprising. The way they lost throws me for a loop. That's what I'm saying. I think it's more of an aberration. I don't think that's an indicator of who Washington really is. It was just rough. The next question you said about how. I said, you remember in the preview series, Gary.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, I think you will see Jacoby Brissett. At some point, I'm not saying it's going to be a benching, an injury. I don't know, but I think at some point you're going to see Jacoby Brissett. Philadelphia is this week, and then they followed up with the Bears. So after those 5 games, if they are not 3-2, but 2-3, I think some questions could be asked about the quarterback and what you got going. Keep in mind this. You called it right. You called him Riverboat Ron. He's a gambler. So if they are, after the Chicago game, 2-3, he realizes that he is coaching for a job for next year. He realizes that. We all do. So the question is going to be, do you stick with Hal or do you put Brissett in there? That's going to be the question there, after the Chicago game, in my opinion. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
With those situations, John, and I'm going to say it's very, very complicated on a number of levels because, with Ron, you saying he's coaching for his job, or he's coaching for his job, but if it becomes dire, let's just say after 6 games they're 2-4. And you're more or less coaching from week. I would feel like for the next week as opposed to coaching for next season. That's the way he might have to approach it, because I do think a loss like that, it might shorten the leash even more for him in terms of management, definitely in terms of the fan base, because they didn't see that. But in terms of Sam Howell or Jacoby Brissett, I think you have to, if you're Rivera, you have to decide on the long term versus the short term. Do you make a knee-jerk reaction call, when things are going bad after 5 or 6 games, or things are struggling, or do you stick with the long-term plan for a guy that you drafted and that you got Jacoby Brissett as insurance, more or less, as opposed to a guy that that you got for the long haul? Because I don't see him at this point in his career as the quarterback for the long haul. I think, for Hal, hopefully this is a learning experience for him. Hopefully it's a learning experience for everybody around him and in front of him, because we had 4 interceptions and a pick 6. Of course, that's unacceptable, but I wonder if you have to look at that as growing pains or just a sign of things to come. I think it's an aberration. I I don't know how much they'll bounce back at Philly, especially after what I saw last night, and how quickly that game changed. Really, with that one fumble right before halftime, where Jalen Carter poked the ball away, and they ended up getting some points out of it. Then got the ball to start the second half, and I think they scored on the next two or three possessions after that, and it was ball game at that point. That just shows you how quickly one turnover can change the momentum of the game. And with Philly, what I'm afraid of are the two rookies they got from Georgia with the run game. Those guys have shown they can stop the run. For that matter, they know Robinson. They could granted it's a whole different team, it's a whole different situation, but they know that guy's tendencies, having seen him already in their careers. So how you use the run game, you better be smart about it. And again, like going back to Buffalo, when you fall behind like that and you're forced to pass, yeah, it's like all bets are off the table. If they were able to establish any kind of run game, get some points out of it, get some points out of the situation you described, I feel like maybe that would have made a difference. But you see it in basketball where teams fall behind big and they try to get back in it quickly, with the three-pointer. That's the thing with the pass. The Bills knew that once they got a lead and just started sending the house and tightening up on coverage to keep them in check, and it worked. So bottom line, what you said, toss the film out, look at a team that's pretty formidable, that's favored to win the division, and try to minimize your mistakes for next week.
I agree. If I'm Rivera, as I'm going into Philadelphia again, like last year, I'm giving Robinson the ball every chance I get, and I'm just running. And that run also cuts the clock down and keeps that guy, Jalen Hurts, on the bench. That would be my plan, but we'll see what happens next week.
Yeah. All right. Moving down a level to college, and I hate to even put it that way because NCAA is probably the closest thing to the NFL right now in terms of how teams are built through NIL. But the game of the weekend, Ohio State coming back on the last second to beat Notre Dame. I was kind of paying attention to it. I was out of town. I was paying a little bit of attention to it, and I was surprised by the outcome. I didn't see the ending, but I was surprised by that because it seemed like on that last drive that they kept coming up with. They kept falling short on third down, and it seemed like they were just one play of ending it. And yet, here they are. Was that a thing with Notre Dame, besides having only 10 guys on the field? John, what do you see as a Notre Dame fan that they failed at and gave them a last gasp?
I think the problem started in the first half, Gary. I think if there is a way, they gave Ohio State too much respect. Ohio State's a very good team. They're one of the best. Ryan Day has a great program, but this is not one of Ryan Day's greatest teams. No. And I think that Notre Dame was too cautious in the first half. Ended up with a 0-0 game. And I think that Notre Dame just didn't, I don't want to use the word scared. I don't want to use the word intimidated, but I will say they gave cautious. Yeah. They gave him too much respect, way too much respect. And the longer you leave an underdog in the game, Gary, what happens? That's the more confidence they get. And Ohio State had a lot of confidence. I honestly believe Ohio State came in that game and they believed they could win, but if anything had gone wrong, they were like, okay, we expected it could have been a downward spiral. Halftime, they come out second half, and Freeman makes an announcement, coach of Notre Dame, that every fourth down, we're going for it. one, why are you announcing that? And two, it sounds like desperation. Don't do that. In regards to the last drive, there was a play as I'm watching it, and I said to myself, they just lost the game. That was a play where the quarterback from Ohio State, what's his name? McCord, I think his name is.
McCord, yeah.
He went back for a pass and threw it right into a defender's hands. Ball went right through his hands.
Yeah, yeah.
If he,
that play, I remember.
If that is an interception, the game is over.
Mm-hmm.
It's over. And when that's difference between winning and losing, but it's also the difference between somebody that's been on this stage before and somebody that has not. When you have the chance to shut it down and end it, you end it. Ohio State, being the underdog, not supposed to win, given all those opportunities, they've been on this big stage before. What did they do? They executed and won the game. They won the game. When you have that interception right in your hand right there, that ends the game. I'm not going to say that one play lost the game, but what I will say, that led to the winning touchdown. Because if you get that, it's all over. It is all over. And the 10 players on the field, for the last two plays, I don't have much to say about that, Gary, other than I see it in high school where somebody has responsibility for counting players. There's a coach on the sideline that counts players. Every snap, they count the players. So you don't have 10, or you don't have 12, or you don't have 50 on the field. You have 11. I know for a fact because I sit and I watch football. I work in the booth with high school football as an official, and I've heard these coaches talk. And there is a coach on the sideline whose responsibility is for every play to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And if it's not, somebody's calling down, calling up to one way or the other to let the head coach know, we got to do something. We ain't have enough. Now, Notre Dame didn't have timeouts left. So what do? Do you take a penalty or what? I don't know. What you do is you avoid getting to that point how many players you have on the field. Freeman is going to make adjustments, he said, so it doesn't happen again in the future. That's good. They got a long road in front of them, Gary. They are at Duke this week. Duke is not your parents' Duke team. They are very tough. They're coming down to your way in 2 weeks. They play Louisville.
Yeah.
And Louisville is tough again this year. And then they still have to go to Clemson. I was telling somebody earlier today, that game is still listed as TBD, time to be determined. Guess what time that game is going to end up being? I can guarantee you, I can tell you what time that game is going to be.
It's going to be prime time.
Yes. Who in the world wants to go and play at Death Valley at 8 o'clock at night? Because there's a reason they call it Death Valley. It's rough. I mean, it's a great home environment for Clemson, but that's going to be rough for Notre Dame. And then they have Stanford, the last game of the year, at Stanford, going to Stanford. That's the Thanksgiving weekend. They've always traditionally had problems with that game. On top of the fact they lost to Stanford last year at home. There's no room to falter. They have to go forward, and I would say run the table. They can't afford another loss.
If it's any consolation,
I forgot USC, and USC is coming to South Bend.
Oh yeah, if it's any consolation, John, in terms of the Clemson game, I think Clemson's done for now in their present form. Losing to Florida State, that was. You look at it; they're 2-2 overall, and they lost to the one team they had to beat to have any chance of winning the ACC. I don't see them coming back from 2 league losses, especially after the way Duke beat them in the opener. Like you said, Duke is not your father's Duke team, which is to say they are not even that Steve Spurrier team back in the 80s, who, where he made them somewhat relevant. I don't know if they're the class of the league right now. I really do believe that belongs to Florida State, and Louisville should be fortunate they don't have to play Clemson or Florida State. Now, if there was going to be a year they could get Clemson, this could be it. But I still think their biggest test, well, they've got two tests. They've got NC State, but in terms of Notre Dame, that might be a test of really where they are and in terms of contending, even though Notre Dame is an independent, so to speak. But Notre Dame, again, I still feel like they have chances. Again, this is like you said, it's a key stretch. I still feel like Notre Dame can get back in the mix. They just don't have much room for error. There's just no wiggle room for them. You're right. They've got to run the table, and they can't run the table by playing cautious. And that was the one thing I did see in that game where the score didn't really change until until late. And you just can't keep giving a team like Ohio State chances. And I agree with you, even as an Ohio State fan, this is not the same team. And I had less confidence in them even coming back from that deficit, and somehow they did. And I think that was the most surprising thing to me.
Well, all I can do is shake my head. Congratulations to Ohio State. Better team won. That's all I can say. But I'll also say this. There is no room for error for Notre Dame. They have to run the table.
Yeah. Well, across the country, we saw a beat down that I don't know depending on what side you're on, I don't know if you saw it coming or, it was pretty much the way that you expected it to play out between Oregon and Colorado. Honestly, I expected Oregon to win that game. I didn't expect it to be a laugher the way that it was. And, there's that term, they beat them like they stole something. That's the way that it came across. I'm not going to get into all the, trash talk on social media and real and perceived slights, with allegedly stomping on the logo in midfield. I'm looking at this strictly from a talent standpoint, and I said right now, Oregon, and I said this then, Oregon has more talent than Colorado. And you pointed out the very thing that got exploited in that game, their lack of interior alignment on both sides of the ball. That, my gosh, I mean, they just got punched in the mouth. They got punched, pushed, and pumped all at the same time. And Dion even admitted something to that extent. And I think that's the thing. If anybody watches tape of that game, that's how you beat Colorado. If you got the big uglies up front on both sides of the ball.
Well, it was a rough game for them. Just like I said with the Commanders game, that's the film you just throw out. The interior lines on offense and defense. That's where they're going to need help in the future. Coach Prime said it after the game. If you're going to get me, this is the best time to get me because we're only going to get better. And he's right, they will. Mm-hmm. But where they will struggle throughout this season is going to be interior line. Shedeur Sanders was on the run quite a bit in that backfield. The line was coming through. It was just rough all day long. In Oregon, that's another place that's rough to play at. Mm-hmm. And Bo Nix, Bo Nix is a very good quarterback. He showed he is a very good quarterback. He had a very good game, and hats off to him. They beat the brakes off Colorado. No ifs, ands, and buts about it. Oregon won. Better team won. That's all you can say. And this week they got USC coming into town, so it doesn't get any easier.
Yeah. That for Oregon and Bo Nix, I think that's the kind of game that can determine their standing in the playoff. When those rankings come out soon, and really for Bo Nix, and I didn't really think about this at the beginning of the season, didn't really take it seriously, but Bo Nix might be the Heisman front runner. even more so than Caleb Williams at this point. And that point was actually brought up by a writer down in Alabama who said that his success at Oregon really points out some of Brian Harson's failings when he was coaching Auburn. That essentially he let him go to Oregon and become a better quarterback, and didn't protect him when he was at Auburn. Of course, Harson's gone and Hugh Freeze is there, but just hearing Bo Nix and Heisman in the same sentence, I didn't really take it that seriously earlier this year, but he really does make a good point. And after that game Saturday, I think you have to really start thinking about him in that discussion along with Caleb Williams. Shedeur Sanders, not so much now.
The thing that people are going to start seeing in they have some very good quarterbacks. You got Bo Nix. You got Shedeur Sanders. You got the kid at Oregon State who used to be at Clemson. How you say Ugaleski or something?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so you got him, and he's playing well. You got another quarterback at Washington doing well. Caleb Williams, last year's Heisman Trophy winner. That you're going to see as the season goes on that this conference has a lot of good quarterbacks, a lot. And Bo Nix happens to be one of the ones who is a very good quarterback as well, too.
Yeah. What I like about this from top to bottom in the Pac-12 is that they're showing right now that they aren't done as a conference, that they are, that they have some power among the Power Five. Granted, it's going to be, it's been picked apart, and essentially what you have left is that walk out the door special, like you might see at Macy's sitting on a table or something. But the two still standing, are not bad, themselves. And I'm just thinking, my goodness, the ones that picked up the teams are thinking, they had a good reason for picking them up, but whatever is left of the Pac-12 or the Pac-2, they might have a good starting point. It's a matter of who they add to try to survive, and it isn't like you're just taking two bum teams right now.
You're right. It's going to be very interesting. So we'll see what's going to happen. Very interesting.
Yeah. All right, John. Your time. Well, this is your week. The Baltimore Orioles, it's the last week of the season. They have a chance to clinch the division. They face the fading Washington Nationals, and I'll just go ahead and say it as a Nats fan, the faded Washington Nationals, whose only motivation at this point is playing spoiler with the team 35 miles up the road. I don't think they can do it. I think the Orioles are a team of destiny. I think they can close it out in the next few days. I forgot what the magic number is. You know that better than me, but I'd say a dream season has a chance to be fulfilled. A dream regular season has a chance to be fulfilled. How do you feel about the Orioles really following through and closing the deal?
Well, tough way to finish the end of the season. 6 games left, 2 starting tonight with the Washington Nationals. Washington Nationals are rebuilding, but they are improving and are playing very well on the road. Mm-hmm. I'm not really excited about that. The thing that has me feeling better about it, Kyle Bradish is on the mound tonight for the Orioles. He is turned into probably the best pitcher they have this season. Then they have 4 games left with Boston. Boston Red Sox, throw the record out the window. They're still the Boston Red Sox. They're still tough. Mm-hmm. You mentioned the magic number. I will say this to you, Gary. Yes, I know the magic number. I will not talk about the magic number. I won't even mention the magic number. We just need to keep on winning and get this clinched. Another important aspect of clinching, you get a chance to get a bye and you can set your pitching staff for the American League playoffs.
Yeah.
The Orioles just came off. They had a day off yesterday. They just got finished playing 17 straight games. They just had a road trip where they went 4-3. The last two games against Cleveland. Cleveland is always a nemesis for the Orioles playing in Cleveland. They lost the first two games, and they went through pitchers like you wouldn't believe. I mean, Cano didn't have it. Perez didn't have it because their arms are all gone, tired. The last Saturday, they really needed something. John Means went into the seventh inning with 6 2/3 innings with a no hitter. They really needed that because that gave the bullpen some rest. And then Kyle Gibson pitched on Sunday. He went 7 innings, again, gave the bullpen some rest. I think as I'm looking forward to the playoffs, I hope they get the American League East. One of the big things that has hurt them is that Bautista is out. Bautista hurt his elbow, had the injury, and that's made them have to adjust and plan on the fly. Cano has been put in the closer role sometimes. My personal opinion, I don't think Cano is a closer. I think he's a setup man. And I think some of his struggles have been since Bautista got hurt that he's had to be a closer. They need to figure that out for the playoffs. You got DL Hall. You got who else do they have in that boat? Cionel Perez is starting to pitch well again. That's two good left-handers. They need to figure out what they want to do for a closer. Again, I would not have Cano as the closer. If Perez and Hall can continue to do that, I would close with one of them. They also have to look at this playoff roster and figure out which pitchers are going to be in the playoffs, which ones aren't. You got a guy like Jack Flaherty they brought over from the St. Louis Cardinals. First game he pitched against Toronto, he looked like the next coming of Bob Gibson from the Cardinals. And after that, then he looked like I won't say who he looked like. I'll just say he had some struggles. I'll just put it like that. So I don't know if he's going to make the. I don't know if he's going to make.
Stanhouse.
I was trying to be nice, Gary. I was trying to be nice. But I just don't know if he's going to make the playoff roster. I just don't, because the problem that the Orioles have had with pitching this year, even when Bautista was healthy, the bullpen has not been consistent. You don't know some nights what you're going to get. So we'll have to see. But I tell you what, they never say die. They never say give up. They are a fun team to watch every night. You know you're going to get them out 27 times. You're going to have to earn 27 outs against the Orioles. That's without a doubt. The thing I like about the last two weekends, I'm sorry, Gary, I didn't mean to cut you off. They went into the weekend against Tampa Bay up by 2. They came out of it up by 2. They went into the weekend here with Cleveland up 2.5, and they came out up 2.5. So they haven't lost any ground. They haven't gained any either. But all I'll say is that magical number you're talking about will continue to get reduced. And I won't say what it is. I know what it is, but we'll talk about it once we have reached it.
Yeah. Well, everything you said just now was what I was going to say, that while the Orioles appear vulnerable, and I know that's what has you concerned more than anything, they're also resilient, and that's what you just said, that every opportunity that they've had to just fade, drop out, just relinquish the lead in the division lead, it just hasn't happened. They find a way. And that's the thing I really like about watching this team. Like you said, they're fun to watch, but they're fun to watch from a standpoint that they just don't blink. What is that? They bend, but they don't break. They'll take a punch and then deliver one of their own. And that's the kind of thing you want in a team, especially, this time of year, because September, just asked the Boston Red Sox from 1978 what it was like to blow that lead. The Orioles just haven't done it. And John, even if they don't win the division, and the best thing is for them to win the division for that bye, but even if they don't, I still think they're probably the most dangerous team going into the postseason. You can say whatever about Texas or Houston. I forgot who's leading the Central, but I still feel like,
Minnesota.
okay. Now that's a team, again, another let's say an underrated, unexpected team that you might not want to face in the postseason. But I still think the Orioles, the way that they put it together, because of themselves and in spite of themselves for everything that you mentioned, makes them a team that you can't look past. And I think makes them very, very dangerous without being necessarily dominant at first glance.
And I tell you, we're going to see what's going to happen. Sitting in first place, if it continues that way, they would play the 4th and 5th place winner, which if it ended today would be Tampa Bay against Toronto. The interesting thing, and I know we got to go, Gary, but I'll share this with you. Here's the interesting thing about Tampa Bay and Toronto. Tampa Bay and Toronto just got finished playing each other last weekend. Tampa Bay and Toronto will finish the season playing against each other and then have the chance of playing against each other in the first round of the playoffs. That's 6, maybe 9 or 10 times they're going to see each other in the next 2 weeks. So it's going to be interesting.
Familiarity breeds contempt, as they say, and they might cannibalize themselves in that regard. By the time they have to face the Orioles. So, again, John, look at the glass as half full as opposed to half empty. I think, again, in spite of everything, they're still standing where they were. And you have to like that, and you have to like their chances going into postseason. Even better if they get the rest with the bye. So that's the fun thing about sports. We have all these what ifs and scenarios to discuss with college and pro sports, and particularly with the NFL. If you're an NFL fan, your team lost, forget about it. Especially if you're a Denver Broncos fan, you better forget about it. But watch the games this weekend. We got, the other thing, John, we might have basketball starting up, pretty soon. The NBA, NHL is entering its preseason. So we might not talk about that next time, but we have plenty of things to watch. So watch us on Facebook, on YouTube. If you really want, we can even send you a link to watch us, but watch sports, then watch us talk about it. John, take us out of here.
Hey, like I said in the beginning of the show, another great week in sports. Watch some football, pro or college. Watch some baseball. Doesn't matter. Watch whatever you want to watch from a sports standpoint. Watch some cornhole. Sit down and watch that as well, too. Just watch some sports and come back and join us again next week. Take care. See you soon.